Get them fired up and get them to the staging lanes, baby, because 8th Mile Apparel is now carrying Glowing Bracket Racing merch. Hats, t-shirts, hoodies, and much more can be yours today by visiting 8thmileapparel.com. We appreciate each and every one of you guys supporting the Glowing Bracket Racing YouTube and Facebook pages.
All right, here we go. Another episode of GBR Live, episode 161, July 16th, 2024. As always, we start this show off thanking the people that keep this free to the viewer. TSR Racing Products, go at them for your Power Glides, Turbo 350s, 400 and 727 transmission parts, BRG 3D printed parts, and accessories for that matter. If you need anything for your race car, you want anything printed up on a 3D printer, you got any kind of drawings or even something you can ship to Brian Garrett, he will print it up for you and put that on your race car and won't take any weight. Won't add any weight, I guess I should say, to your car. You can take weight off your car by doing that. Just call Brian Garrett. He'll get you fixed up. Syntex Printing out there in Temple, Texas. You want that car stickered up. You need some stickers, shirts, brochures, anything you need for your racing program or your office. Call them over there at Syntex Printing out there in Temple, Texas. Driven Racing Oil, the code right there behind me right now. GBR10. Get 10% off your order. Get you some of that speed clean, man. I got some pictures that I'm getting ready to post up on our Facebook page where you should be following. You should be liking and subscribing on the YouTube channel because we're getting ready to do some giveaways for our YouTube followers. If you're not subscribed already, you need to go over to the Glowing Bracket Racing YouTube channel and subscribe right now. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We're getting ready to do a big giveaway every single month. We're going to give away a water pump. We're going to give away, what else are we going to give away? A water pump. We're going to give away an alternator. We're going to give away a starter. We're going to give away some AN wrenches, the things that you guys always want, but you never can justify getting because they're expensive. We're going to give them away for free over here. And we got a couple other things. We're going to give one big thing away every single month for Proform parts. If you want to know what they cost, go over there and look for yourself, proformparts.com. We got some stuff coming, and it should be out here. We're going to do one at the end of this month, so just go over there and click that subscribe button on the YouTube. It doesn't cost you anything. I don't know why you're not subscribed. You might as well go do it. Crew Chief Pro software. What you need to do, if you need to figure out your dial in, is give Don Higgins a call, and he'll get it figured out for you. It's very easy. George does it all the time. He did a real good job with it this weekend from what I hear. And, of course, you want some GBR merch, you want some shirts like I got, you want a shirt like George has, hats, 8thmileapparel.com. Support the channel. Dylan Champion's got a Piss on Delay Boxes shirt. If you're a foot breaker and you think you're better than the rest of us, then get you one of those shirts and tell everybody. But anyway, George, what'd you do this weekend? You use some of that Crew Chief Pro, get you up in there into the semis, I hear?
Yeah, man, Crew Chief Pro was working good. Mo was working good. More so, you said, did I get myself in? And I think the car probably did the most of the work this week, to be honest. He was pretty solid. So a combination of Crew Chief helping me keep my dial-ins tight and Mo doing what he needed to do to run right. All I got to do is screw the seats, and that's what happened all the way down to the semifinals. You can't drag race without a few lucky laps, in my opinion. I had a couple of lucky laps, I would have to say, but things going my way. Just couldn't close the door. Turned it 008 red in the semifinals. I was racing a motorcycle, man. I never raced a motorcycle before, and man, he had me hype, I guess. So let go. Probably, of course, it was best I did all day with it being 008 red and everything like that. So, yeah, no, it was a fun weekend. I'm going to say that. And definitely can't wait to get back in the car. It's the most laps I've made down the track in a long time in one day. So Definitely worth it. Definitely worth it, man. I heard you went out too though, and you took the car that we don't quite have a name for that I'm aware of yet, but the fast car is what we've been calling it. Tell me how that went for you.
We're pretty good, man, for only having 5 runs on it so far after this weekend's over. Went pretty well. That car is going to take some dialing in. It was over 100-degree heat index, so a car that's going in the 470s is not exactly the car you want to bring out whenever it's that hot. But I mean, it was relatively consistent for what it is and for how few runs it has on it. Now, I've never had anything like it before. I've never had any blown alcohol stuff before. Um, and after it's all said and done, it's going to take some tweaking, but it's relatively close. Of course, I get down there in the third round, give it back to Travis Morton. I mean, if he was going, he dropped me too. So I mean, if he was going dead on, he was going to beat me anyway. And Travis Morton, if you're in the North Carolina area, you know, has been on fire this year. It's kind of one of those deals where if your last name isn't Morton, you might as well show up to the racetrack figuring that runner-up money is about good enough for you between him and his brother. Because there was one week Travis Morton didn't win at Jacksonville this year, and his brother won. So then Daniel took the money home. But I'm glad because, to be honest with you, that car was getting so hot. You know, Galot has a curfew, and they tried to start after the sun went down. It was just a gambler's race that was thrown together, kind of not really last minute, but kind of last minute type thing just to get something going, do something for the racers, which I heard nothing but good things about. $2,000 to win. I want to say it was like 500 to runner up, 200 to semi, and a gambler's race, single entry only, $60 entry fee. I mean, you really can't shake a stick at it. Had a pretty good turnout. I got to, I want to say it was third round or something, and was blasting up on Travis, who's got a Nova very similar to mine. We run relatively same ET. So I had about 50 mile an hour coming up on him, and I'm like, I'm flying around him. And then needless to say, my brain hasn't caught up to the speed of the car yet. And I dropped him, and I ended up 200s behind. But I'm glad it was to him. He's one of my good buddies. And ultimately, I honestly don't know if I could have made the next round or not, just because they were trying to hurry up and get it in before curfew. I don't think I could have turned it around fast enough and got the car cooled off. I had a fan under the car. I had, at one point, I had the hood off to let it cool off some. And the radiator fan basically didn't shut off. I mean, that car's not really built for racing in 105-degree weather round robin in it. Yeah. I love the format. If I had my Nova out there, I would have had no problem because that car's built to double enter. It's got 2 batteries in it, got an alternator on it. I fill it up with fuel, walk in the trailer, sit in front of the fan, and wait for him to call me again. And, you know, I knew that's how it was going to be. It was just it's been so hot that people have been canceling because of heat index, and then it's been raining otherwise. So I hadn't ran that car in a month, and I needed to know if what I changed fixed it. And it's going in the right direction. Now we know. They're supposed to have another one of those events here, not this weekend, but next weekend. And as long as I get all my work done on this car and around the house and stuff and can make it, then I'll bring my Nova out there for the next one and definitely support that program. So appreciative to Galot Motorsports Park for putting on that race, because everybody else, because of the weather, had to cancel. So it's the only place to go other than Mooresville. So I know between Mooresville and Galot, we all had great turnouts. We're all appreciative to them for throwing the gates open as we always are. And that's kind of how it went for me this week.
Yeah, man, it was a pretty fun weekend for sure. Shout out Kevin Noyd or Kevin and Jimmy. And Jimmy, I heard you had the truck out there. You had to load him back up and head back home. But I can't wait to see it. I heard it was a real nice looking truck too. So definitely can't wait to see you get all off into the Door Trucks Rules Nation with a truck Casey that's probably gonna run in the 530s, big dog. So that truck's gonna move when it's all said and done, man. And I told you to name him Larry because that's what Mo likes to slap on old Larry. So go ahead and name him Larry. But hey, while we're here, guys, I want to go through a little bit of clerical work. We got some things coming up, especially out there in the Northeast. I'm talking about that Gold Cup Triple 10K. Brought to you by Jet Promotions. Several sponsors on the flyer that's helping out this event. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, July 26th through the 28th. You got 10 grand up top, dropping it to $2,000 runner up and so on and so forth. Looks like you're getting about $100 to win third round. So definitely looks like a real good race. I'm real honest with you. If I had the money, I'd mess around and be on my way to it myself. Maybe I'd stop and get Casey if I had like a stacker and, you know, a big rig. I could pick Casey up, just make a big trip out of it. Both of us would be on our way, you know, but I'm a couple days away, it seems like. But it is what it is. If you have any questions, holler at old Antoine Jet. He's got his number on the flyer here for you. Like to see you guys pack the place out here. This is going to be a good race, let's see some good results out of this one. Another race we got coming up, and it's definitely one that's no stranger to GBR. Mid-State Twin Tens coming back live to you the 26th through the 28th as well. Out there at Mid-State Dragway, they've been putting on those 10Ks. Pretty well all year. If you're looking at that flyer, it says they got 6 big weekends, and it looks like we got 3 of those left over. So definitely, if you're in that Midwest area, Midwest Illinois, or north or south, I don't care where you are, and you want to have some fun racing, this is a good race to look at going to as well. Pack the place out, show some support. Old Brad Gebhardt and Vashon and Greg do a great job out there. Definitely show up and perform well while you're there. Turn on some wind lights. And last, but certainly not least, something that everybody knows is coming up here pretty soon. Once I find the flyer, 1 second here, is the Great American USA 500K. October 15th through the 19th of 2024 out in Montgomery, Alabama. This particular flyer has a lot to do with what we're going to be talking about today. As you look kind of in the middle, a little bit to the right of the registration opens on July 9th, and you'll see what's called a progressive purse. Casey and I are going to get into a little discussion here real soon about progressive purses. And if you look down a little bit, it's also in gold. You'll see it's capped at 385 racers. So that means 385 entries. And this race will pay $500,000. I had to do that in my Donald Duck voice. How'd I do, Casey?
Mediocre at best.
You don't do me like that, okay? Casey, what we talking about today, man? What we talking about?
I'm saying for the first part, you want to be Scrooge. Isn't that the one that swims in all the money?
That is Scrooge McDuck. Definitely, he diving in it. My kids watch that show, Casey. DuckTales. He still watch it, so that's pretty interesting. I grew up with that show too.
So, what we're going to get into today is pre-entry and progressive persons, as you've already said, and kind of they go hand in hand for the most part. Let's just start off with pre-entry, because we had kind of a big stink about pre-entry a few years back, and it seems like people are going back toward that again. And as far as I'm concerned, I was talking with Dylan Champion, our buddy that helps us out a lot on the Going Bracket Racing YouTube channel. And with pre-entry, the number one thing, there's 2 major pros and there's 2 major cons. Or I guess there's 2. There's one of each. So the pros are you can cap a race with pre-entry. You can't run a capped race without pre-entry because you're going to have to turn people away at the gate, which means that people aren't going to travel to your race. So if you're going to have a capped event with X amount of cars where you know you can get done in one day, then you have to have pre-entry. Now, the con to that, which was the big deal that we had several years ago with people talking, was you're allowing someone to hold your money, lots of money, thousands of dollars a lot of times for these big events. And the event could potentially not happen. You're putting a lot of trust in the promoter. Sometimes the promoter could be holding $1 million, after everybody's got money in there. But what you're allowing for is, if the event does happen, the money's there. We all know the money's there. The promoter knows how much money needs to be there or how shy they are on it. And if they do, let's say you do pre-entry months in advance. A major pro to that in the promoter's side of things and in the racer side of things is if they say, we wanted to have 375 cars and we only have 275 entries. What's our break-even point? Do we need to go search for more sponsors? Do we need to do more publicity? Do we need to, really there shouldn't be a con to it, in my opinion. There shouldn't be well, I'm worried about what if the promoter doesn't have my money whenever it comes down to it. Well, in my opinion, that's a risk you take. You order stuff off the internet all the time. You see stuff on Facebook Marketplace. 99% of the time, you don't get scammed on Facebook Marketplace, but there is 1% of the time you do. Do your research, in my opinion. Do your due diligence as someone who is being a consumer of this product. Maybe don't do a pre-entry for somebody who's brand new, and that doesn't even happen. There's only a few very large promoters out here that could even get away with doing a pre-entry race. Pretty much every major promoter at this point has really been going for definitely over 10 years. That's not a stretch. Most of them longer than that. I want to say Galen Rollison's probably one of the longest running big money bracket race promoters or series type promoters in the game, even longer than the Fling series. King of the Coast, for those of you that don't know, is Galen Rollison's series, one of the best run series where people simply will not. I know a guy, I sold a dragster to a guy that he said that's all he runs. He will only run King of the Coast. He has to work too much. He takes off those weeks that King of the Coast is, runs 3 or 4 days, whatever it is, and that's all he runs. But the fact of the matter is, they're really, in the pre-entry side of things, there isn't really a downside. Not to mention if it's pre-entry, which we'll get into later on, in not a capped field, you usually get a better deal on the race anyway.
Right.
So
right.
What are your thoughts?
That's right, man. And more and more, you said something earlier today, Casey. We were talking on the phone that I really want to hone in on a little bit, and that's the era that we live in. And as we think about the time at which we live right now, we got social media, TikTok, X, Twitter. I don't tweet. I don't have none of that stuff, but the Twitter stuff anyway. But yeah, there are plenty ways to get the message out about your experiences and what you felt was good or bad about said event. And so piggybacking off of the thought process, Casey, of giving a couple grand to a little bit more than a couple grand to a promoter to quote unquote hold it for you until the race is here is a little bit easier to do with a certain amount of promoters that we have, especially those who have the positive relationship or positive shoot, I can't think right now of a good word to say there, but they have a reputation. There it is. The reputation is positive through social media, through the bracket racing community that says, I'm not scared to hand $2,000 to Pete Biondo or $2,000 out to some of the best. The OG Million's been around for so long. I'm not scared to hand that money out and understand that the race is actually going to take place. And so in those cases, and Casey, I actually definitely like the pre-entry. It's protection, in my opinion. At the end of the day, we have to have the promoters on the big money side of things, especially. We must have promoters willing to put themselves on the line, put their own businesses on the line as a promoter in order for us to go out and run for these bigger purses, attract more eyes in the manufacturing industry, whatever industries we're after. These big money races are what's making it possible for us to capture that audience, either by way of getting sponsorship, whatever the case it may be, for said race. You got your Mosers, you got your Skag and Dickies, you got all these big places that support bracket race, TSR Racing Products on the back right behind Casey. You got all these places that support bracket racing and drag racing, that technically may not necessarily have the viewership without these bigger money races. That's the main reason I like pre-entered races, for the protection aspect to the actual promoter. Casey, what do you think about that?
Well, it's also kind of cool the fact that, you're spending the same money after it's all said and done. But the cool part about it is a lot of times with pre-entry, you kind of pay half now and half at the gate. Um, so while you're still spending, let's just say you're spending $1,000 on this big race or whatever, sometimes more than that, but let's just say 1,000. If you spend 500 in say March, and then the race actually happens in August, well, spending 500 here and 500 there doesn't hurt as bad as spending 1,000 all at once. You know, it's just a mental thing where a lot of us don't have that kind of money to be spending, but it's just like saving for Christmas type thing. If that's your one big race you're going to go to a year and you can kind of do it over time, you can do that with a pre-entry race. You don't have to shell out $1,000 bills right there at the gate and sit here and be like, man, I don't really know if I should be here right now.
Right.
Right. But ultimately the facts is that the money's there. The promoters know at least how much money is there before the event actually happens in that scenario. And more than anything, it allows you to cap the field, which means you won't have a marathon race. The race can be finished in a very simple manner. It can actually get finished on time. Maybe you don't race until the sun's coming up the next day, unless there's some crazy event happening. But they can get everything in that they said that they were going to get in. So as long as there's, barring any crazy event on track or any crazy weather system that comes through, if they say they're going to run, for example, I want to say that Great American Race has triple 40s and a 500 in the middle. Right. So that race will, in fact, have triple 40s and a 500 in the middle because it's a capped field. So that's which I don't think the 40s are capped now that I say that, but the big race is.
Right.
You're not going to have 800 cars show up.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's a great thought. But and kind of piggybacking off what you said there is as far as for a capped race, and that's what we're mentioning right now, guys. So if you've got comments and you want to leave them in the chat, we'll definitely read those off here in just a little bit. But capped races do leave way for getting through early, getting done with the race early, which also gives and again, we can't race big money without promoters. It gives the promoters another opportunity to say, let's do a 64 car shootout like what Jet Promotions is going to do at the Gold Cup Triple Tens, where we got 2,500 on the top. Maybe we do even more than that. Let's do a $100,000 shootout. You know what I mean? But those things are able to be done as long as there's enough time to do them. And capped races, in my opinion, not only does it protect the promoter, it shows you, I know there's something floating around or somebody has an algorithm in their head that they are using to say, well, I've got 385 cars. How long is it going to take me to put that 385 cars down this racetrack so that as soon as that's done, I could set up a golf cart race or a practice tree event or bring the tent out and the barbecue pits or whatever we're going to be using to have a racers appreciation party. Like CP Promotions always throws and things of that nature. You know what I mean? So I definitely like the thought of capped fields. Seemingly that 385, 375, that range seems to be very, very common. Casey, any ideas as to why we're seeing that 385, 375-ish cap?
I think it just happens to be the number. I guess that's just the number where you could probably get a race done in 12 hours or something like that. And it just allows you to do what you say you're going to do. And it allows for a little leeway in the meantime. And I mean, it's just the number, there's always a happy medium for certain things. And I want to say Britt Cummings the other week, whenever he was on here, I don't know if it was last week or the week prior, great interview with him. If you guys haven't seen it, you need to go back and watch episode either 160 or 159 with Britt Cummings. But he explained in there that in short terms, that's just basically the right amount. The 375 to 395, that's what you want. And that's when you can finish a race. It just is what it is.
Right, definitely. And by the way, I made a mistake on our episode number. I do believe this is episode 162. Because someone forgot to change it on the YouTube side and just copy and pasted it, all the way through. So episode 162. But Casey, man, getting back to the whole capped idea, man, and really liking that the feel of capped races. And I have a feeling we're gonna see a lot more of them. in the future. It seems to be the way that the promoters are going pretty well altogether right now, where there's a cap. There's a negative to the cap, though, Casey, and that is the fact that not everybody, just because you bought an entry, that doesn't mean you're actually going to be able to show up. What if you broke your car? What if something goes on at home? Your babysitter fell through. Kids got a baseball game that you didn't account for, and maybe it's the national championship, and there ain't no way you're missing that, right? So we can go into another conversation that I'd really like to graze over the top of as gracefully as possible here, because it's a sore subject in my opinion. And the thought process is you capped it at 385 cars, but you oversold it, say, to 425 cars. Why is that good, in my opinion? I'm going to call it good, Casey. Let me know how you feel about it.
You have to oversell a capped event because, like you said, what happens if you break your car? If this race is in September and it's a capped event and you're having to pre-enter in March, I mean, that's a lot of racing that can go on. And usually these capped events, you see a lot of big names out there all the time. That's because they're constantly racing.
Right.
And the facts are is that these are race cars. They're not really made to be what they are, and they're being ran as hard as they can be ran a lot of times, and things break. And ultimately, when things break, maybe you don't have the money to fix it right now. Maybe the engine man's backed up because other people have broke stuff in front of you, and he's going 1, 2, 3, 4 in order. There's a lot of reasons why you couldn't make the race. So that's why, if you notice in the fine print, a lot of the pre-entries are not refundable, but they're transferable. So you can then sell the event entry. So really, I guess you could also say that that's not a bad thing either, because if you can get an entry, it's just like a ticket to a concert. If you can get a ticket to a sold out event, you could potentially make money on the entry fee as well. So there's a lot of things that can go into that, but ultimately, the promoter is taking a risk by allowing the pre-entry, because if they're not making you pay in full up front, then they stand for you to break your car. And yes, that sucks for you. And in our hypothetical $1,000 entry, 500 now, 500 at the gate. Yes, you lose $500, but so does the promoter. So you're both screwed in that scenario.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's kind of why I want to make the whole thought process of overselling a captive event positive. It's not necessarily a negative, guys. And most of the time, and I'm speaking for pretty well, I think the majority of all promoters that we see on the bracket racing scene right now, to where if, let's say, all 385 entries did show up, and let's say now you have 425 cars, or more than that even, on top of a capped field, most of the promoters are in the right frame of mind to give it back to the racers, even though they don't have to. That's just good business, in my opinion, and then reap the benefits of and take the rewards, in my opinion. The risk, high risk, take high reward, in my opinion. You know what I mean? But it's a good thing to see these races get oversold. And I know that before we used to talk about, kind of a couple years back, there was a lot of back and forth about, oh, this promoter oversold by this many, but this dude he done the same thing. Well, everybody should be entitled to oversell a capped race, in my opinion. So, guys, leave your comments in the chat. If you have anything you would like to say or kind of bring up, got anything you want to get off your chest, feel free to do so here on Going Bracket Racing, community of racers for racers. And here real quick, we're going to give our marketing partners a chance to get a word out to you. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe. You better subscribe to that YouTube channel. I know you guys are out there on Spotify and Anchor and all these other different spots out here now. We'll make sure you get into that drawing too. Just make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel while you're at it. Hang in there. We'll be right back with a couple messages after this. BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts are able to provide you with whatever you desire to enhance your drag racing operation. Items like safety belt magnets, nitrous bottle holders, and even quick release delay box mounts are able to be obtained from BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts. Have a look at top selling items such as helmet hooks and steering wheel hooks, which are proven to make it easier to maneuver throughout your race car.
You can contact BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts at telephone number 765 729 1177.
TV promotions. It's the Larice Motorsports Insurance 250K, presented by Autoland Outlets. Join us July 25th through the 28th at US 131 Motorsports Park in Martin, Michigan. Pre-entry opens May 14th for just $15.99, gets you into 250s and a $250K to win race. And if it sells out, you get $100 back. So join us this summer, the only place to be, the Larice Motorsports Insurance 250K, presented by Autoland Outlets.
Unleash your horsepower with ProForm Super Street aluminum roller rockers. Utilize the latest cutting-edge manufacturing and design processes. The dual contoured body design allows for more rigidity with a greater strength-to-weight ratio, increasing engine power. Super Street aluminum roller rockers are available for a variety of applications and specs for Chevy, GM, and Ford, including pedestal mount, as well as a Chrysler shaft mount style rockers. On the strip or the street, ProForm has you covered.
All right. Welcome back. Going Bracket Racing. Thanks for being part of the community. Joining us on these Tuesdays, every single Tuesday, 4 p.m. Central, 5 Eastern, because I speak in Central Time Zone. Thank you very much, Casey. Special shout out, Team 14 Motorsports. You guys been with us for a while. Can't thank you enough. TSR Racing Products, it's the same for you. You guys are awesome. Thank you for everything you do. I tell you what, I needed an input shaft, and they had it here before I could blink, it felt like. It might have been a 2-day turnaround to get me a turbo spline input shaft for my FTI converter. So definitely appreciate that. Proform Parts, definitely, guys, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Okay, we're definitely going to start giving some items away courtesy of Proform Parts. Keep in mind, anytime you need something and you're a part of GBR community, have a look at our marketing partners catalogs first. This is no exception to Proform Parts. Take a look at their catalog when you need something. They support us. We would like for you guys to support them. Crew Chief Pro, hey man, I owe you dinner, something. You got me to semis pretty good there. The car was good. Felt like I knew what I was doing out there. Coming back, sitting down, I had people watching. It's like, oh, he got a whole setup. He got an open trailer, a truck, a paint pole that goes, I don't know how far that thing goes up in the air with my crew chief, with my weather station on there, and my laptop sitting underneath an awning. It was about 105 degrees, it felt like, but Crew Chief Pro had me squared up. Appreciate what you do. Head over there and have a look at their weather stations and Crew Chief Pro software. Driven Racing Oil. You guys are all over the place at the racetrack at Extreme nowadays. I'd like to say thanks to GBR. I think I'll take some of the credit for it. But no, it's thanks to you guys making a really good product. I think I had a follower message me this week, and I think it was Cody Newman, matter of fact, messaged me, and he had a picture or a video of his oil, and he said, man, this Driven oil is awesome. He said, I don't know how many, I can't remember how many runs he had on it. He might chime in a second, but that oil looked brand new. So special shout out, Driven. I love your race wax. Mo loves your race wax. That's my race car, by the way. BRG Motorsports, 3D printed parts. Anything you need, he can print it up. Make it easier for you to maneuver through your race car. Whatever type of mount you might need, he can make it. 8th Mile Apparel, get you some GBR merch. That Piss on Delay Boxer shirt is pretty hot. I don't even know if she has any more left, but I know there's a new shipment coming in soon. So you guys get over there and holler at old 8th Mile Apparel for your needs. Syntex Printing, Ken Jones Performance. You guys are awesome. Thanks for joining us today, guys, the community. Casey, man, where are we going next, man? I think we got a little bit more to talk about within this show, and more so around the progressive purses thought.
Yeah, man, progressive purse structure. And I know there's a lot of people that are back and forth on this type of deal, because a lot of times the way the progressive purse structure is set up, it's not a good deal unless X amount of cars show up. A lot of times the way the progressive purse works, it says we guarantee X amount of dollars, and it'll just go up after X amount of cars. Like every 25 cars, it goes up. It's exactly how the OG Million has been set up since its inception. Now, for example, the OG Million's not really a great deal unless you get X amount of cars, because it's a high entry fee. However, what I've been thinking is the progressive purse structure might be the way of the future. And why do I say that? I say that because if you could set up a race that, say, the promoter makes money at X amount of cars paying, say, 20 grand or whatever. Well, then wouldn't that in theory mean that every car thereafter would then, like, could you set it up in a way where every car that you get beyond X amount, the promoter is going to make X percentage off each car? So the promoter is going to make, say, this, and I'm not explaining this right. Michael Beard would get on me if I was to say that this is how I'm thinking about it. But my thought process is, could you set up a race where you're going to make, the promoter's going to make, say, I don't know, whatever it is they think they need to make, 20% of sales. They know the track's going to cost this amount also. So could they then just say, if we get 100 cars, we're going to pay 20. If we get 150 cars, we're going to pay 30. If we get 200 cars, we're going to pay 40. So then the more cars that show up, it just gets to be a better and better and better deal for the racer. I don't even know if that's possible, but if it is, what do you think?
I think that is possible, man, and it could be actually what's happening with the progressive purse as a whole, Casey, because from a business standpoint, looking at the flyer just right here on my computer screen right now, guys, I'm looking right at the 500 Great American 500, and right off the rip, $100,000 is guaranteed. But if they get 112 to 123 cars, then 115,000 is guaranteed. One thing I can say for certain is this progressive purse, business-wise, allows the promoter to see pretty soon what they're going to need coming in order to have to pay this out. If 123 cars show up and you make 115, you automatically know your track rental is probably going to be anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000, somewhere in that range. Don't quote me. That's just kind of what I think it's probably going to be. If you're getting it live stream, that's going to cost you. Your fees are you're able to add up things a little bit easier with the progressive purse. And if you don't quite get to where you need to get, you have a safety net in the progressive purse system itself. And so I hope I'm answering your question, Casey. I think it's definitely possible from a business standpoint to do exactly what you mentioned.
Yeah, and I mean, these are all tossed together ideas that aren't ironed out or anything. Obviously, otherwise I'd be promoting events. But the fact is that I feel like that might be something that people need to look into, because the progressive purse structure stands to be a very good model to where it protects the promoter and it protects the racer, as long as you can make it to where the entry fee is something that it can't be astronomical. We can't be paying, we can't say, oh, if we get so many cars, we're going to pay $500,000 every race. But if it was a scenario where you just add to the pot type thing, like everybody $100 entry fee, just say, and then all of a sudden you have 200 cars there, then you have all this money coming in, versus if you had 100 cars, you have this much money coming in. Now, on one hand, you never know what you're racing for. So that part sucks.
Yep.
But at the same time, you also know that if the track's doing well, you're doing well. If the promoter's doing well, you're doing well. It's kind of like, it's almost like crop sharing. Like if you own farmland and you're doing crop sharing with the farmer, you could just tell them, hey, I want X amount of dollars for rent every year for this ground. Or you could say, well, I'll just take the risk with you and we'll split the profits however much ways at the end of the year, whatever you decide on. So you could stand to make more money. You could also stand to make less money. Now, the crop sharing method, that's the progressive purse method in this way.
Absolutely.
However, because you could always stand to make more money. However, the rental fee for the acreage is how the races are ran primarily today. Probably 95% of all races are your normal standard, I hope the cars show up so we can make some money type race.
Funny you say that too, because I've got Brian Whitworth in the chat here. He's mentioning that he would like to know what he's racing for when he leaves the house or he enters the race. That's
Mhm.
probably something that I think everybody thinks about. We had an episode a few episodes back called Racing the Flyer, where we talked about things like this, where when the flyers put out, that's practically what we're racing with before we even get to the race, if you know what I mean. This progressive purse thought is definitely safer, in my opinion. It's a big number at the very top. That's number one, okay? That's a huge number. $500,000 to a bracket racer to win the event. Now, we know they're going to chop it up, but let me have just a little piece of that 500, and I promise you, you'll see nothing but a Kool-Aid smile on my face for the rest of the day, okay? But it's safer for the promoter. I do get it though, leaving the house and looking at the 250K that's coming up at US 131. Here, I do believe next week, Casey, is when that race is. But where you see exactly there's 250 up top, it's going to break all the way down. It's going to be one of the biggest races of the North, exactly how the flyer says it. So I get
Yeah,
it, and I get the risk at the same time, where I feel like they still both have equal amount of risk. One is a little bit more risky than the other, in my opinion, because if they only get 123 cars, they're only going to pay $115,000. That's not going to
yeah,
happen at a Great American Race, right? We know that race is probably going to be more so around that 385 number, where they're going to probably get pretty close to paying out the full 500 grand.
yeah. And don't forget about the fact that Brian Whitworth puts his money where his mouth is right there, because they guaranteed $250,000 in Michigan next week. So he wants to know what he's running for on the flyer, and he puts it that way on his flyers too, because ran by racers. That's how they want to see it. That's how they do it themselves. So if y'all aren't going to that race yet, I want to say last I saw, there's only 30 spots left in that capped 375 car, $250,000 to win guaranteed race up there, not to mention the side races. So anybody's got a wild hair, if you've done some winning these past couple weekends, you can still get in. So you better get on it. But back to what we were talking about here. I would say the major con, really, I guess you could say, of everything we're talking about is if we're talking about a structure where the promoter's only going to make X amount of dollars no matter what. Like, say they want to make 10 grand that day, and they figure out a way where they're like, no matter how many cars are here, I'm going to make this much money. It's better for the racers, and I'm going to make this much money, and that's what they decide. Now the promoter doesn't stand to make any more money by finishing the races or anything either, or getting to the next race. So if they're not standing to make any more money, then they can't also justify saying, well, why aren't we finishing this race on Sunday when it rained out on Saturday type thing?
Yeah.
Because you can't expect them to pay track rental whenever they're only making a set amount of dollars to make it better for you. So you got to be happy with them not finishing the race if they can't get there.
I'd actually think that would be a common occurrence, in my opinion, as well, Casey. Is more and more, especially if weather has anything to do with it, we're seeing these races go and spill into a day that may not have been quote unquote scheduled to race on. So we've spilled over from a Saturday into a Sunday. Now we have a whole day to race or finish up a race. So I definitely think that's happening a lot more often. I did see a progressive purse race by Gallstar as well, though, Casey, and it, like you said, man, I think it's going to become a lot more common. It makes it easier to put that large number up top.
Yeah.
It does, because it's just less risky. I don't think he paid his full purse. I'm not 100% sure, but did he have to? Well, no, because he was on the progressive purse for his main event. You know, these other races, these 40s surrounding the Great American or other things that we talk about, generally those are guaranteed money. You know what I mean? So I do feel like this is definitely something we're going to see a lot more in the future, this progressive purse.
So let's go into an offshoot here. Split the purse or go into an extra day of racing, because that's become a big topic in the last 5 years, I feel like. And really it's because in the last 5 years, it seems like everybody's promoted it as, rather than racing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they decided we should race Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as a makeup day. Well, if you list Sunday as a makeup day and Sunday has good weather, then everybody's going to say, well, why aren't we racing on the makeup day? And I think first of all, it all could have been solved by racing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because you're either going to take off the day before the race to get there, or you're going to take the day after the race to go home. You're still taking the same amount of time off. So I really don't understand why we've started doing that to begin with, because if you're a guy that's going to make it home on Monday and you're going to the race, guess what? You're either going to leave on Sunday or you're going to make it home that night and go straight to work. We've all been there. I've done that a bunch of times. My dad's done that more times than I can count. But the point is, I guess, why is everybody so against anymore if we're in third or fourth round, just splitting the money up and going home whenever we weren't supposed to race that day anyway?
I'm going to poke at Nova fan here real quick, Casey, because he's making jokes on me on the YouTube side. In my opinion, I don't really have a good answer to that question. I really don't. Seemingly, that's the right thing to do. Is if the race is, I mean, it's 3 rounds in. I know there's a lot of entries left, but we just watched, I think, something like that with SFG where they chopped all the money up and sent everybody home. I don't know very many racers who were left in the 3rd round who's going to be upset with the fact that they didn't have to go race Gage Birch in the 3rd round or the 4th round anyway. So take your $1,000, all your entry money back, basically, and maybe a couple $100 more above that if you didn't double, and take it to the stables. You know, I know in the grand scheme of things, we all want to win. You know what I mean? It feels great to turn on electricity, to cool your car down after being ran so many times, maybe 20 minutes back to back, because you're winning laps. You know, you're winning the round. But at the same time, it feels real good to stick $1,000 in my pocket and go home too. I'm not gonna lie about that.
Let's just talk about the fact too that, you know, going back to what I was saying, we expected to race this day, and this day. So there's plenty of people that have based their work schedule around, I'm going to this race because then in this scenario, I could travel back home on Sunday. Sunday night, I could then, you know, blah, blah, blah. The whole point is they have their schedule planned around that. There's several people, especially in a race that only got to 3rd round. I mean, I would venture to say maybe 20% of those people are like, man, I don't know what's going to happen, but I got to go. Like, I got to go anyway. It doesn't matter. So, I mean, a lot of these people run their own businesses. They're expected back at work. Some people, business can't run without them for another day. They've already taken off to come racing this whole time. They can't be gone even more. Maybe you got to get home to your kids. Like, your wife's got a job. She can't just take off because you're gone. Yeah. So it's like, I just don't understand where the idea came from that we always need to finish the race in a scenario of it's running into the last day. Now I can understand trying to finish the race if, like, let's say we're racing on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it rains out Friday's race. Okay, I get that. Let's try to stack races, things like that, or double the event or whatever case may be. But I've never understood, like, unless it's a major event, unless it's like the OG Million or the Great American 500K or the couple $1 million races we've had in the past. Like, I understand needing to finish that race because it needs to mean something. It needs to have a winner. We can't split the OG Million. We can't split the Great American Million. We can't split the SFG Million. We can't split those races. But a regular race, we can split those races, you know, especially, you know, we're not talking like, oh, we're down to 8 cars, you know. Right. We're not talking we're down to 8 cars and there's these 8 guys left and they're all willing to stay till the next day. Right. And we will want to see who's going to win. Right. We're talking, you know, 20s and 50s and things like that. And in this case, 100, where we're only in 3rd round. Like, this is a lot of racing left to do still. Right. And I can tell you right now, I'll just, one more thing I can say is I live about 2 hours from Rockingham, 2.5, something like that. And I can tell you right now that it poured rain for all night, quit raining about 8 in the morning at my house. And then it started pouring down rain again at about 4 o'clock. And I don't think with what the weather forecast looked like, I don't really think that you could have they probably could have got it done. It would be an incredibly lucky that it would have happened. I mean,
you're talking about the SFD Super Bowl race.
Yeah, it would have been start to finish with no issues, nobody oiling down the track, nobody braking, no sprinkle in the middle of the day, and there wasn't one. But I don't think anybody could have predicted that. So
Right.
I mean, I think that was the right decision in that case. You know.
Right. No, I'm with you though. I lost my train of thought on what I was going to say before, because basically, I feel like you should split it too. Split it up. I know what I was going to say now. You said it. The million, the 500K, OG million, whatever the case may be, all those races are so prestigious. Like bracket racing, drag racing isn't a small industry. Bracket racing isn't small. We are relatively large, in my opinion. There it is again, Nova fan. But a large entity right now. Our companies who back us, they want to see their name on that big check, or the winner of the big event. They want to see their name out there. You know what I mean? It's great publicity for them. So I can understand running kind of some of these larger races into specific days. You know what I mean? That Sunday we had to race on that day because it's the main event. I can understand that, but some of these other races, sometimes you just run out of time, guys. So that's what I got on the subject, Casey. That's about it. I'm about tapped out on the subject as well.
Yeah. No, man. So ultimately, I guess should races be combined, or should they be refunded whenever a day is missed? Like, because I've been in this scenario before too, and I've said it a couple times. I remember not this year, but last year. I remember specifically, not the episode number, but I do remember on an episode talking about the fact that I base things off of, this is what the entry fee is to say race for 3 days. That's how I base everything off of. Like, can I afford to do this? And then is a good deal to race for 3 days for this entry fee. And whenever it turns into 2 days for that same entry fee, now all of a sudden in my mind, it's the deal's getting worse because I wanted to go race for 3 days, you know? So, and I'm not saying you should, any promoter should refund it. I'm saying if I'm at the race, I'm doing whatever the promoter says anyway. It doesn't make a difference to me. I would prefer to race 3 days if I'm going to race 3 days. But I guess the roundabout way of getting around this is just something off the top of my head. It's not anything I've actually thought about. You can't expect the promoter to just refund it and we'll run for the same money. Like if we're going to run, say, 320s, you can't say, oh, a race rained out and not make it either a 20 and a 40, or if the other two haven't happened yet, you can make them 230s, because the promoter still had to pay for the track that day and still had to pay for the staff all that time it was raining and everything. They had to pay for all that stuff. So you can't just get your money back and expect them to give your money back, because they're still going in the hole over here if they do that for you. So if they do that for you, you better really thank them, because that's something they really shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, and I don't know, Casey, man. I think it's a double-edged sword, because you'll have some people who will enjoy the fact that the money got split up and that they're on their way home. The schedule stays exactly the way it is on the flyer. That's one. And on the other hand, you'll have people who really want to compete, like what you just said. I want to race for 3 days. I want to turn on as many win lights as possible, because honestly, I like how those win lights feel a whole lot better than just going home with a pocket full of money. I don't think I fall on that side of the sword, but it's so tough, Casey. You know what I mean? And that's why we always see backlash. Whenever something like this happens, you'll see quite a bit of comments in social media, or we'll get quite a bit of people wanting to vent in our Going Bracket Racing Facebook messaging inbox. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I'm okay either way, in my opinion. There it is again. Nova fan, you messed me up, dude. I think I'll say that word a little bit more often, and thank you for making me aware of it. I'm gonna switch it up.
Bracket Racer 1 over here, one of the last things just popped up in the YouTube chat over here. Don't forget, at any successful race, it's 300 people against one promoter always. So That being said, if there's only 1% of that 300 people, it's 3 against 1. So 3 mouths are bad mouthing them on the internet, and there's only one promoter to defend themselves. So don't forget also that those 3 people talking bad, there's potentially 297 other ones that liked the event that aren't going to say anything. So, and that's the reason why over and over again you see all these people complaining on the internet, but yet promoters stick around because there's still people who want to go to the race, and there's people who don't care what other people think. So
yeah, I think Brian Cook's right. He says there's no way to make everyone happy. It's right. That's a fact. You know, you can't get around that. You know,
and what's the problem with making the vast majority happy? If you make 75% of the people at any given race leave happy, you did a very good job.
I'm honest with you. I wouldn't even care if 25% left unhappy, because 75% is the larger number. Obviously, I did something right. If the majority of the field said I did a good job, I don't care about the 1% who said I didn't. You know what I mean? And I think we need to keep that in mind in the whole sport. Who cares what people say? If you want to have a race your way, have that race your way. And if people enjoy it, they're going to tell you they do. You're always going to have somebody to talk trash, however. So it is what it is. It's in everything, not just drag racing. That's in everything, dude.
The simple fact is, man, is that I've said this time and time again. If you really think something's so bad, don't go. Nobody's forcing you to go. You don't have to go. There's plenty of places racing every single weekend. For example, Motor Mania TV's got BMP Triple Threat this weekend. They also have the Ace Race in Ohio. Triple 20s and 250s and a 25 right there. So you don't have to, you don't have to go to one or the other. Go to whichever one you like better, or whichever one you dislike least, I guess, because I think there's some people like that. They dislike everything and they just dislike this less.
Right. That's right. That's right, man. So no, I think we're in a good spot still, Casey, as we always talk about the state of bracket racing. We're still in a really good spot. It's only going to get better. I definitely believe that the progressive purse is going to be relevant. Not to say that anything's going to happen to the guaranteed money events. You show up, this is what we're racing for. I also think that eventually, and maybe we can have this conversation on another episode of Going Bracket Racing Live, but I also think that we'll see the return of a pre-entry race that doesn't have a cap, that also allows you to pay at the gate. Why do I think so? Because that is smart business. That's why I think so. It is very smart business to allow a discounted price, because you basically have pre-enter discounted price and then allow gate entries at the same time. It is what it is. I know that we'll probably have 700 entries again eventually. It's going to happen again. Mark my words.
They're not getting smaller, man, and that's a good thing. Everybody wants to say it's bad. It's never a negative thing whenever you have too many cars. Because I have lived in an area, and you have lived in an area, where for economical reasons, the cars have dried up and all the tracks closed. I remember a time where I had to drive all the way to Indianapolis to go racing, which is 5 hours away. So, right. And you better hope that if it's raining at your house, you better hope it isn't raining there, right. So, because you got to go. That's the only place you can go. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of people that forget those bad times, and you need to count your lucky stars that there are plenty of people still that want to do this and that love the sport enough to put up with people complaining about them on the internet and keep putting on these races. And like I said, if you want guaranteed money, TB, $250,000, man. I don't know if it'll buy you a house anymore, but it'll get you pretty close, won't it?
I'm gonna tell you what, I don't think 250 is buying a house. It might pay off one that you already own, but it's not gonna buy. The market is ignorant. That's all I got.
One thing's for sure, though, it ain't gonna hurt your chances.
It ain't gonna hurt at all. Just let me have a little piece, like I said before. Just a little piece of it. I'll just take just give me a little bit. Give me 10%. I'll take
30 spots left. 30 spots left.
Yeah, I'm all the way down here in Texas. My bank account ain't set up like that.
You know, the first thing Brian Whitworth would say is he'd say, "There's an interstate comes right up here."
He would. There's also a plane, and tell him to let me rent one of them Wentworth rides. Let me sit in that truck. I'll come.
I'm sure he'd let you.
Probably. Well, guys, hey, Casey, man, I don't got nothing in closing. What about you?
No, man, again, just everybody needs to subscribe to YouTube that listens to this. Subscribe to the Going Bracket Racing YouTube channel on YouTube, duh. But anyway, we're giving all the ProForm stuff away. We're giving a giveaway every single month. These are big parts, guys. Like everything's over $100. I think some are in the $200 range even. So these are free parts that you can use for spares or put them straight on your car. Maybe it'll replace something that you have already. But it's free. What's the deal? But all you got to do is subscribe to YouTube. Doesn't cost you anything. We're going to pull it from that list. So if you're on Facebook, if you're on Spotify, if you're on whatever podcast platform, go on YouTube, click the subscribe button on the Going Bracket Racing YouTube channel. And every single month at the end of the month, we're going to pull for, like I said, AN wrenches, starter, which, by the way, they told me you can pick the high torque starter too, which is like for 14 to 15 to 1 compression. That's probably $250 starter. Alternators. Man, I can't even remember what the list was. There's a water pump you can pick, and they're not specific either. Like if you got a Ford, you can get it for a Ford. If you got a small block Chevy, get it for a small block Chevy. You might not get the color specifically that you want, but you are getting a free water pump. And I can tell you right now, I got one on the Nova and have had one on there for several years now, giving me no issues. So I can't remember what else we got, but that's kind of the level of stuff. So hit the subscribe button on the YouTube side. Help us out. Help yourself out. Maybe you'll win some free parts. You never know. We do these giveaways all the time.
Maybe, guys, maybe. Keep your eyes open. Well, it'll probably come out on Facebook first. We're still trying to iron out the details, and we'll give them all out to you so that everybody knows what to do in order to be entered. But for now, I smell some good food in the kitchen. My stomach sounds like an African safari jungle. I'm hungry, okay? See you guys next Tuesday.